Can't believe I'm saying this, but today has been one of the worst days. It's a Tuesday of evening. It's 8 o'clock, almost 8 o'clock, and I'm just back from work. There was a huge hold up on the highway and our cab was late. And then I was out in the cold, and then finally I'm home, and I'm slightly irritated by the fact that I wouldn't get to go on my run today. But I really wanted to make this video because I have been meaning to talk about my recent read, On Earth We Are Briefly Gorgeous, for the longest time, and today is going to be that day. So I have a cup of my mental support chai right here with me as I talk about this book, what I liked about it, what I didn't like about it. So let's just get into the video. I absolutely admire the way the writer writes all of these beautiful paragraphs. As they say, then to be gorgeous even from the day you are born to the day you die is to be gorgeous only briefly. Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is Pooja at A Book by the Window. If you're new here, I do book related videos on this channel. If you want to check out my main channel, I am going to link it in the description box below. And with that said, with that out of the way, I want to jump straight into the plot of this book. On Earth We Are Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean Vuong is a very popular book. A lot of people would have heard about it, would have already read it, but I happened to chance on this just now because last year reading was kind of stale, and only this year I got this from my library, so I thought this is my sign to finally jump off the bandwagon. Talking about the plot of the book, there is no real plot. Sorry, I misspoke. There is a plot, but the plot is not very structured. It isn't a typical story where it starts from the beginning and ends at the end. It kind of is one of those reads where you find that there is a protagonist and they are in the present, and you see them shifting between memories from their past lives, and that is where the narration takes you. It takes you through the protagonist's memories and what he thinks about them now. The main people who are in the story is Ocean Vuong himself. This is a memoir, and then he talks about his mother. This debut novel is tainted as his letter to his mother, and the irony is that he writes this story, he writes these thoughts in this journal in English, but the irony being his mother does not understand English. She comes from a Vietnamese background, and so does his grandmother. So these are the three people who are important characters in this plot. I am using the word plot, which kind of takes away from the fact that this is a memoir and this is story of a real person. From now on, I would refrain from addressing it as a plot, but as I said, it did feel kind of like a beautifully drawn story, one which you almost wish is fiction, not a memoir, as is the case here. There are parts of the story that are set in post-American Vietnamese war, and we see the effects of war on the author's grandmother and how it percolated down to his mother, all of the mental health issues and difficulties overcoming difficult background, which in turns affected him. So there are generations that are affected from just a war. I've read a lot of war books before, but this one takes the cake for being very different in the sense that it talks about one single person and how their whole life, even before they were born, was determined by an event in history. And as I've grown up, I have realized that one cannot usually escape whatever generational trauma and generational effects that they have been imposed, they are born with, and with that you need some acceptance in understanding where you come from. That kind of liberates you in a way and helps you move forward in life, accepting those things and realizing that a lot of these things were beyond your control. You can only do what was meted out to you, what was given to you. From there, I'm going to talk about all of these things maybe in the later sections, but now I'm going to move on to the writing of the book. This is one of those books whose writing I absolutely admired and adored. The sign of a good writer is not just to, spin an engaging story, but it is also, it's what I believe, is also to come up with a prose or a writing that moves something in the reader. And this is one of those books which I will always recommend for its writing, because even with all the suffering and all the pain and all the trauma that is being told through these accounts, you see that the author tries to lean on to the more optimist side of the species, of us as humans, which be love as the essence of everything in this world. I personally believe we live in a society, we live in a world which is marked with a lot of suffering and pain, and it's difficult to escape it all the time, but we can find solace in the love that we find in little things like the nature or things around us, or a family bond, or love that we can inculcate for ourselves without the fear of being someone or somewhat. And that is very well reflected in this book, not in terms of what they are talking about. The subject matter itself is very hard-hitting, but the way the writer writes all of these beautiful paragraphs, all of that is very lyrical to read, and in a way it bounds you to the author's story. I'm going to stop yapping now, and maybe I'll read something from the book to showcase what I'm trying to say here. I am thinking of beauty again. How some things are hunted because we have deemed them beautiful. If relative to the history of our planet, an individual life is so short, a blink of an eye. As they say, then to be gorgeous even from the day you are born to the day you die is to be gorgeous only briefly. Like right now, how the sun is coming on low behind the M's, and I can't tell the difference between a sunset and a sunrise. The world reddening appears the same to me, and I lose track of east and west. The colors this morning have the frayed tint of something already leaving. Now, moving on to the highlights of the book. I usually document my reviews this way, where I talk about the highlights and the lowlights. I already think that writing was the highlight for me in this book, so I'm going to skip this section and going straight towards the lowlights. While there were no major lowlights for me, I did enjoy reading this book. I felt some of the threads were left open for interpretation, which happens with a book like this. It's not something that is unheard or unseen, but I would have liked to see more of a closure in their life. I understand there has to be no closure in a story like this. There's no perfect ending in human suffering or human life, but I would have loved to see more of a cohesive structure to the memories. And even though there was no cohesive structure, I did feel that reading a bit from the mother's perspective or the grandmother's perspective would have helped me understand better the whole story and actually what the author is writing about. But then again, I also understand that the relationship that is shown in the book between the mother and the son is very difficult to talk about even for him, and we cannot really expect him to be a spokesperson for his mother at this point, because maybe he doesn't relate with her, maybe he doesn't want to think of these things from her perspective. But I definitely missed reading about those. Final verdict, I'm giving it a 4.5 out of 5 stars. Just because of its writing, I think you should pick this book up, and also because it's popular, so you might as well spend some time understanding what the hype is about. And all in all, it is a very good book to read. Great way to start your new year. A lot of people don't like reading fiction. I don't know what that is about, but if you are just a non-fiction person, I always recommend reading memoirs, because it helps you understand someone else's story and gives you a perspective in life. So this is one of those books that gave me a lot of perspective about the war and the plight of the family after the war, and the difficult relationship that American Vietnamese people have with each other. I'm always enlightened, and it brings perspective in my life how there are so many stories in the world to know about. I hope I don't bore you guys a lot with these videos. If there's a particular feedback you would like to have for me, my comment box is always open. And if you like this video, please like it, share it with your friends, and consider subscribing to the channel. Happy reading. I'll see you guys next time.